When you're out patrolling the streets, expect the unexpected.
What is it doing?
I don't know. Hey!
Dark figures that leer from the shadows, creepy creatures that stalk your every move, and evil spirits seeking vessels. There's a lot that goes on when patrol, and we're revealing some of the most harrowing encounters.
Hello?
What is it doing?
I don't know. Hey!
A group of officers was called to a local pier somewhere in the US. The call was apparently made by a passerby who thought he'd seen a distressed person, but when the cops got there, they could see nothing. After a few seconds of pause, a light silhouette emerged, with its back to them, and somehow blending in with the dark. The cops called out for a few more seconds.
Hey!
Are you okay?
But after getting an eerie silence in return, decided to retreat. The next day, they checked out the pier, but didn't find anything. Viewers believe they might have actually captured the spirit of a person who dove into the pier and lost their life, but who knows?
Hey!
Are you okay?
A quick pass. While patrolling a neighborhood, the dashcam of a police shop captured a dark, mysterious figure standing at the very end. Now, while you and I might chalk it off as just a passerby, there are a couple of things you need to know. Firstly, this figure showed up on the dashcam but wasn't visible to the cops driving the shop. Secondly, the patrol was reportedly in a US neighborhood where multiple people had gone missing, and some reemerged a few days later, having lost their lives to an unknown cause. Now, paranormal investigators have questioned whether this figure had anything to do with the missing people and their subsequent demise. Ghost or not, it's a dark case. Parallel haunting.
But it's inside now. Tapping on the window outside.
A man repeatedly called the cops because he was sure the house parallel to his was haunted, but no matter how many times he complained, the cops wouldn't take him seriously until he and his wife decided to take matters into their own hands and record the ghost they'd been seeing in an attempt to finally prove they weren't just pulling the cops' legs. What follows is them not only discovering they hadn't been seeing things, but realizing the house was haunted by more than just one spirit. Even if you argue this is just the homeowner, as the cops thought too. The speed with which the figures appeared across floors is a concerning giveaway. Constructed reality. Construction workers remodeling an airport started hearing unusual sounds emerging from the restricted section. The area had been locked shut, with no way of going inside until the supervisor cleared it, and he hadn't even showed up for days. After worrying that somebody was pranking them, the workers decided to call the cops, who immediately scanned the area, but found nothing. Just as one patrolling officer moved ahead, he heard a rattle and then quickly spotted a humanoid face in the window. The problem? Nobody had been in there, not even the cops themselves, because it was next to impossible. So that can't be a human face. Mannequin Trouble. Something about mannequins really creeps me out. It's almost like they're actually alive, but waiting for the right moment to move. Some also believe that evil spirits enter mannequins and use them as temporary vessels. Now I don't know how true that is, but seeing this video, I believe it might have come from somewhere, filmed by a dressmaker in their newly rented workshop. An evil creature stood, with its paw-like hands hanging out in the front. They disappear quickly and prompt a big search, although he ends up finding nothing. Now, some viewers believe the creature was actually an evil spirit that quickly hid in one of the mannequins. Jin Swing. Jin are powerful creatures, capable of shape-shifting and turning invisible. It is believed that Jin seek empty, desolate areas where they come out to play when it's dark outside and not a soul is there. It seems like that's what's going on here. After hearing the continuous clangs of the swing, someone called the cops, only for them to come up against this. Well, they were too startled to do anything but I wouldn't dare mess with an invisible force like that. My A. You'd think being a night guard is easy money because nothing really happens. But when you're up against a whole world that's invisible, you never really know what to expect. After constantly feeling like he was being watched, a guard decided to patrol the building again in hopes of catching out a prankster. Instead, he found a dark, ominous figure hunched up over a bench with half its face obscured. Here comes the creepiest part. This is where the video cuts off. Not because he stopped recording, but because the guard simply disappeared. And neither the guard nor the figure have ever been heard of since. Daredevil's regret. You may be a daredevil, but sometimes some things are better left up to the imagination. After hearing rumors of an abandoned hospital being haunted, one daredevil explorer took on the task of uncovering the truth, but sadly was only armed with a flashlight. He didn't even have to call out the spirit because it appeared quickly. And here's a pause for you. See its face? How it has human-like features. But there's something about that pasty skin and expressionless mouth that tells you this is not human. Not only did the explorer disappear after this, but many people reported seeing the same figure around. Only no one knows what it wants. Critical view. Many hospital workers often report seeing a dark, daunting figure at the edge of a hallway when a patient is breathing their last. It is believed this figure is actually the Grim Reaper, there to collect the souls of the patients and guide them to the hereafter. And although I wasn't too fond of the idea, and seriously thought it wasn't really the case, I can't seem to come up with an explainable scenario for this one. If it was a prankster, who in their right mind would do this near a critical ward? And wouldn't the administration stop them? As unbelievable as it looks, it seems like this really is a form of the Grim Reaper. Church's spirit.
Hello?
This is one of the oldest and most convincing ghost encounters. The video was taken by a patrolman who decided to ditch his usual route and walk by a church known to hold funeral processions and similar rites. Just as he walked up to the pews, he noticed a lonely figure. But as soon as the woman turned her head, he knew he had to get out. Now, while his reaction seems a bit far-fetched or exaggerated, the same guard reportedly fell sick that night and didn't recover for a long time. Some say it's because he was haunted, while others believe the spirit was simply not pleased at being interrupted. Last nurse standing. Sometimes, amateur explorers really end up pulling the short stick. This was taken by one such daredevil who really thought it'd be a fun idea to explore an abandoned hospital, all alone. Yep, not the brightest bulb. And after hearing some scuffling behind him, he turned, expecting to find rats or even some other animals. Instead, a dark, hunched-over figure, dressed in hospital drapes. The figure quickly disappeared into a nearby hallway, but when the explorer decided to chase after it, he realized it was not worth his time or his life. The smartest decision ever. Ouija Trouble. A resident of an anonymous neighborhood in the US claimed that he was being haunted by dark, mysterious figures that seemed to have made his family a target. Initially thinking they were just being threatened by hooligans, Jorge didn't really take much action. But soon, he and his family realized these weren't humans, but dark spirits that seemed to revel in their fear, and mysteriously disappeared any time Jorge and his family came close to discovering them. But why Jorge? Well, a couple of weeks before the hauntings began, Jorge fooled around with an Ouija board. Yep. Playing with a ghost board. That'll do it. Camilas Return. I wouldn't recommend playing hide and seek in the dark, especially on an isolated farmhouse. A couple of friends decided to do just that, but ended up encountering life beyond their own. As they began looking for their friend Camilla, they flashed their torch upward, but a dark figure kicked off a chair. Thinking Camilla was just messing with them, they kept at it, even coaxing her and teasing her. But after a few minutes of playing this game, they realized whatever was up there wasn't Camilla. Thankfully, they decided to ditch the game, but rumors say when they returned home, they found Camilla there, proving they were playing with ghosts. A bold visit. When a door opens up on its own, you'd assume it's the wind, but when there's no draft, and the doors are sealed shut by a lock, you know something far more nefarious was behind it. These hospital workers had no choice but to witness the brunt of whatever's going on. One of them smartly left the room, but when you've got an invisible spirit that has the power to take down doors, you're not really as safe as you'd think. Could this be an old spirit, here to take revenge for a malpracticing doctor? Or something else entirely? Child Patrol. In the depths of the night, a security guard patrolling a mall discovered a lone child. Naturally, thinking the child had wandered off and gotten stuck after closing time, the security guard leaned in to hopefully help him out and reunite the child with his parents. He hitched out his walkie-talkie and seemed to have communicated the child's presence to the other guards on patrol. It was then the guards manning the CCTV notified this poor guard that he was literally talking to nobody. Well, he was surprisingly calm for someone who just met a djinn. Grim Elementary. What if I told you that young spirits, children of ghosts and evil creatures, come out at midnight to roam schools and haunt their empty hallways? Don't believe me? Fine, but what I'm about to show you will change your mind. After hearing constant rattling emerging from the bathrooms, the security guard, despite clenching with fear, decided to check things out. To his horror, right in the bottom of a cubicle were feet, but not ones you could say belonged to a human's. The security guard booked it out of the room, but not only because of the ghostly presence, but because this wasn't an isolated incident. Apparently, the previous guard had lost his sanity after a confrontation like this. Tarm Max horror.
Verga.
This is one of the oldest and most convincing paranormal videos. It was taken roughly 7 years ago by Francisco Hernandez, a night shift airplane patrolman. Just as he was done with his shift, he heard a weird rattling from the plane. Assuming it was just a couple of rowdy teens, Hernandez thoroughly checked out the plane, but could make out no one. He finally convinced himself that it was a mere coincidence. When the temperature dropped, and he just knew something was wrong. Terrified, he turned, and there it was. The dark figure was never seen again. As for Hernandez, he survived, but allegedly quit his job the next day.
No mames.
Horrible presence. This video was revealed by a security guard who was convinced he was being haunted, but nobody believed him. Right in the beginning of the video, you can see a mild, transparent silhouette on the bottom right, and it seems like we weren't the only ones who spotted it. The guard clearly stands up because he felt a presence. He later revealed he also felt the airdrop, and could swear he felt he was being watched. But nothing and nobody was there to solidify his experience until he pulled the tapes.
So I looked at the cat, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna calm down.
The Graveyard Shift. Only those who truly defy fear are daring enough to work the night graveyard shift. Many graveyard caretakers report hearing odd, creepy sounds like wails, seeing unusual figures and silhouette, and even feeling an ominous presence. For a long time, such experiences have only been chalked off to imagination, but one graveyard caretaker's camera might have just captured the proof we needed. As he patrolled the air, he suddenly felt a chill in the air and an ominous presence, so he decided to follow suit. And there, right behind a tombstone, appearing for a split second only, but you can see there was someone or something there. Station's horror. A gas station employee felt he was being watched, and when he couldn't ignore it anymore, stared out the window and saw a tall, lanky silhouette. Spooked, he stepped outside, hoping to confront whoever it was. But to his horror, the figure had disappeared. He later reviewed the cameras to make sure he wasn't just sleep-deprived. And there you go. That's proof, isn't it? But what could it be? Many believe our world holds invisible portals that act as gateways for interdimensional beings. And although it might sound impossible, it seems like they're much more than the imaginative beings we've believed them to be. En route hereafter. Being a late-night bus driver is tiring enough, but to see something that's not there, it changes a person. It is believed that our cameras are capable of capturing things that the human eye can't. And it looks like that's exactly what happened here. The bus driver noticed a passenger sitting in the bus when he'd long crossed the last bus stop and was en route to the terminal. Thinking a passenger might have slept through their station, he turned around only to see nobody there. Still not believing it was real, he thoroughly scanned the bus, but there was not a hint of a soul except his. So who was taking the bus? Halloween's winner.
Security camera company Ring has been asking for yours through video proof. Now, each of these videos shows footage exactly as it was captured.
Just this year, a Halloween contest was announced for the state of Hawaii. Viewers were requested to submit proof of ghost activity and chance a win of $100,000. And here's the finishing submission. Captured by a homeowner's Ring camera, the video shows a man walking up to the stairs of a home. Now, right away, by his translucent figure, you can tell that this is no ordinary capture. The man stumbles into the porch, where he treats himself to a drink that was left out by the homeowner. After tossing it away, the man disappeared. Now it's unusual enough, but the homeowner swore up and down that she couldn't see anyone there, even though she was right there. Asylum solace. One guard's first shift at an old mental asylum turned out to be his last, as he patrolled the corridor where some of the most aggressive patients were being held. One of the gates opened up. Now I know, this could just be the wind, or a patient themselves, right? But the guard didn't waste a minute, and immediately handed in his resignation. Why? Well, it turns out there were no ventilation systems in that area because the building was hundreds of years old, and no patients were being held there at the time. Whatever the guard believed it was terrifying enough to quit his job. Grim Reaper's touch. In a hospital in Canada, a patient mysteriously passed away despite being perfectly fine just a few minutes ago. Concerned, the hospital administration called security, hoping they'd be able to find something. Just as an officer inspected the room, he caught something unusual on his body cam. The temperature of the room dropped, and there, just in front of the bed, you can see some sort of shadow move. Now, while we could argue that this could be a person's shadow, the officer was there all alone. He reviewed the footage later and was sure that he'd either caught the patient's soul, or maybe even the Grim Reaper. Devil's Smoke Show. What one CCTV stationed right outside a police precinct captured will make you question all that we know about the world. It initially appeared as a billow of smoke. To anyone, it'd be just that. But then, it swirled, and you can almost make out a humanoid figure from its smoke. And then it takes an even firmer shape, and within a second, it tackled the CCTV, as if it knew it was being recorded. But that's not even partly scary when you consider its shape. Could this really be a creature we've heard about in stories? Or is this some devilish type of alien, ready to wreak havoc wherever it goes? brightness bound. Watch what happens to this woman as she waits for the elevator. A bright beam, and one that truly looks omnipotent. It's almost like this isn't a light, but some sort of celestial being. Although what happens next makes me think otherwise. You can't tell here, but it's almost like the woman goes through the bright beam, and not willingly. Seconds later, she's found down on the floor, with no recollection of what's happened. It is believed she actually came across a will-o-wisp, or perhaps even an ancient soul that had gotten trapped there. Phuket's nightmare. A couple of years ago, the Phuket airport was closed for remodeling. During this, not a soul was allowed in, save for the security guards who patrolled the area. The night shift there acquired a reputation. Many guards were terrified of the night shift because they swore they could hear people, even though there was no one to be seen. And then, one day, one of the guards captured this. Right around 3 a.m., multiple humanoid figures crossing the terminal, as if they were about to board a train. Frightening enough, but even creepier to know these weren't humans, but lost souls, presumably from an old plane that went missing mid-flight decades ago and has never been seen since. Ballooned up. It is believed that guards who work at hospitals often develop a spiritual bond with the patients, a bond that often lasts even after some patients pass away. This was captured by a CCTV camera in a children's ward. And before you think the guard is talking to himself, take a look at what happens next. Just as he exits the conversation and leaves, the balloons seem to follow him. Now, I did think it could simply be because of a hallway breeze, but here comes the creepiest part. The guard wasn't talking to himself, but two kids holding balloons, and kids he later found out had passed a few minutes ago. Creepy, right? Breas Curse. We think we're afraid of being alone, but we're actually afraid of not being alone when we're by ourselves. You won't get this fear until you take a look at this man. Presumably a cop patrolling his precinct. He began recording a video that he'd later send to friends, trying to pass his time. He didn't notice it then, but right behind him, through the looking glass, was an ungodly figure, and one that resembled Mexican Brujas. By the time his friends alerted him to the figure, it was gone. Many believe this was a real Bruja, with the intention of taking him with her, but because he'd accidentally recorded her, the Bruja changed her mind. Night shift, last shift. When working a night shift, you're never truly alone. This administration worker welcomed a fellow worker and talked to them for quite a while before pulling out their chair to help them sit. The worker then went on to go about his shift, not really giving much thought to the fellow worker he'd sat next to. It was only when the CCTV camera operator noticed him and pointed out that there really was nobody there. Now, let's rewind the video a little bit. Just as he starts talking, you can see that it's not to nothing. In fact, there seems to be some sort of a silhouette moving about. A djinn? A ghost? Who knows? Forlorn and forgotten. Sometimes, spirits are unable to move on and get trapped in our world. It is believed this happens because the spirit has some sort of unfinished business. This theory might sound bonkers, but wait till you get a glimpse of a spirit that's clearly thirsting for revenge. Lurking around the hospital beds, it seemed like the spirit was looking for something. Perhaps a doctor who had caused the spirit its life, or maybe something else. But after finding nobody there, the spirit eventually moved ahead. The Slender Man. The Slender Man not only haunts desolate areas like forests, but is also rumored to haunt hallways of hospitals and abandoned buildings in hopes of finding a potential victim. Think we're pulling your legs? This video was captured by a security guard patrolling a hotel being remodeled. Right at the end of the corridor, you can see a clearly humanoid figure. But was it really human? Not according to the security guard. And before you think it could be a prankster, just see the exit sign blaring in the background. Judging by the height, this figure has to be at least 7 to 8 feet tall, a challenge for even the NBA. invisible help. It's a terrifying but common phenomena for guards working the night shift to assist people who seem every bit real to them, but never show up on CCTV. That's saying something, especially since most cameras are believed to capture the unseen. But some paranormal enthusiasts think that jinns and certain spirits purposely don a human disguise to pass off as one of us, but don't show up on the camera because their duality confuses the lens. Here, the guard allegedly helped out a sweet old lady until his fellow guards called to let him know he's all alone. Welp, that's an understandable reaction. Old departure.
Oh my god.
A motion-activated camera alerted the staff of an old age home to some movement, but when they looked up on the screen, they realized that there was nobody there. Nobody human, I mean. Just on the bottom, near the ground, there's some sort of light movement. It seems to be made of wisp or smoke, but whatever it was, had clear control over its movements and seemed to be heading toward the other room. Now here's where things take a dark turn. Soon after watching this CCTV video, the workers were alerted. It seems one of the elderly at the old age home had passed. What do you think? Could this be their soul walking to eternal bliss?
It actually looks like it's walking, doesn't it?
Dia de los Muertos. Every year, Mexico and parts of Central America celebrate the Dia de los Muertos, or Day of the Dead. This holiday is dedicated to the memory of those who have passed away, so all celebrations and processions revolve around paying respect. It is also believed that on this night, portals to the hereafter open up, allowing ghostly figures and spirits to enter our world for just one night. Although the celebration is riddled with myths, one video is proving it might just be more than that. As these women celebrated the Dia de los Muertos, right on the top of the building, you can see a silhouette fondly watching the dance. Well, at least the figures were in good spirits. Constantly haunted.
¿Qué?
A woman was being constantly haunted by eerie sounds and mysterious figures, and finally decided to chase the evil spirit causing the disturbance. At first, the yank of the blanket would make you think it's only happening because someone's pranking her, but you can see that the room was clearly empty. Next, something even creepier happened. A clear knocking on the door, as if someone called in, but the woman was far too experienced for this. She stayed cautious and called out, but nothing except a pair of thin, dark hands that seemed to creep through the doorway. Well, that's about all it takes to creep us all out, isn't it? Doom's touch. And here's another run-in of the woman with something evil. After she uploaded her creepy encounter, viewers alerted her to the possibility that she might be the target of an evil spirit. And here, she captured yet another moment when somebody was clearly knocking at her door. It seems whatever the spirit is, it really wants to drive her insane before it makes a move on her. But that's not the concern or the scariest part here. What really is that the woman disappeared and stopped uploading after this video, raising concerns about her safety.
Subí un video hace días, de los cuales en los comentarios me decían.
Evil Hopper. There's an old belief according to which spirits and evil beings don't walk and linger, but hop from place to place. Some say it could be because they're not really meant to be on Earth, and hopping from place to place is their only salvageable way. Now I know it sounds like a bunch of bollocks, but these two orbs were captured hopping from one spot on the ground to another by a CCTV camera perched on a house. Since then, theories have been flooding in about this. It's possible these two orbs are the footprints of a divine spirit, but some also think these could be two individual orbs going about their way. Midnight Marauders. A palish brown figure, its physique oddly inhuman and eyes that glowed bright. Anyone smart enough would know this is an eerie encounter, but when dark creatures like these are hiding in the dense woods around midnight, you don't really grasp what's going on. The cop patrolling the restricted part of a private park discovered this the hard way. The figures seemed to be keeping an eye on him for quite a while, but as soon as their eyes met, they both freaked out. Hopefully, the creature never returns, but its identity will always haunt the cop. Clangs and bangs. Raul Arguello, a security guard in Tomás Adolfo Duco Stadium in Buenos Aires, Argentina, recorded and uploaded this video. Apparently, he had been convinced the stadium was haunted, but never really had the proof to back up his claims, until he finally recorded this. Doors slamming and creaking, loud clangs and eerie whispers. These are telltale signs of being haunted, right? Thankfully, whatever spirit was lurking in the stadium didn't really want to chase after Arguello, or else who knows how this video might have turned out. The crime scene. When you're manning a building all alone, your worst fear isn't a thief, but realizing you were never really alone to begin with. This happened with a cop who stayed behind to man a crime scene. Only, after a few minutes of patrolling the building, he heard some movement from one edge of the doorway. As he went there, thinking it was an intruder, he saw a dark spirit quickly crossing. Now, although the video cuts off here, the cop reportedly went right after the spirit, but was never able to find anything. Paranormal investigators believe he might have caught the spirit of the victim who'd lost his life in that building earlier. Closet monster. There's no monsters in the closet. We've all heard this one, but does it really ring true? One woman's experience says no. The Mexican resident was apparently being haunted by the spirit of a lost child. She'd wake up to the wails of a crying child, emerging right out of her closet. But when she'd turn on the light and investigate, she wouldn't find anything. That's not all. Sometimes her closet would open by itself. After experiencing this several times, she finally figured out the cause. She'd picked up an abandoned doll and brought it home, storing it in her closet. After throwing out the doll and performing a mild cleanse, the hauntings stopped. Evil resignation.
I don't have time for this today. Stop.
I don't know what's more impressive, living in a haunted house and living to tell the tale, or being so accustomed to the haunting that you actively talk with the ghost. Just as his experience goes, this man seems to be dealing with a ghost that just can't stop trying to get under his skin, even after he implored the ghost to stop. The mysterious spirit keeps haunting him. Well, at least they've come to a mutual understanding. But if I were him, that house would be on the market.
I got too much going on. You gotta cut it out.
Grizzly figure. Never stop your car in the middle of a deserted road, especially when you hear calls for help. One family did just that, thinking maybe there was a hurt person somewhere. But the second they stopped, they found themselves next to a dark, haunting figure. Its face etched with a grotesqueness you'd hear about in books. The creepy figure was intently watching their every move. The video cuts off after a few seconds, and the family reportedly did make it out safe. But there are rumors of them losing their sanity after this. Open discussion. As a cop, you often have to deal with things you'd never wish on anybody. And while we're fiddling with the idea of paranormal and supernatural, it seems like one police team dealt with more than their fair share of both. After capturing the grotesque creature, believed to be a solidified vessel for an evil spirit, the police squad disappeared. The only thing hinting to their encounter was their body cameras, but most of them had been wiped clean, and only this short clip was extracted. Some think they went into witness protection, while others think a dark force took them, but their experience is as harrowing as any.